Alright, class, I'm gonna set up a still life in my room and my bed. I'm using my bed because I want to be able to use the cloth of the bedspread to be interesting, and also because, to be quite honest with you, it's one of the most empty, open spaces I have in my house because I have two kids. One's 2 and one is 8 months old. So I've assembled some different type of objects that are pretty interesting. Obviously, books are not the most interesting, but I'm using them kind of as a base and to add like a stability. I have this buffalo that is like cast iron that I'm going to use. I thought it was pretty cool. Um, you can't see it super well there, so maybe I'll come up here. You can see it. I thought, okay, it's got a lot of interesting shapes, and I like it. It's just kind of a weird, interesting, cool object from my Americana collection. So I thought that would be cool. And then also, to go along with my theme of Americana, I thought, oh, this piece of deer antler would be kind of a cool thing to add in. Gives me some natural forms and shapes to go with my mechanical looking square, even though they're not mechanical as far as a machine, but they're machine made, so they're very rectilinear shapes of books. So I thought, okay, that'll be cool. To be honest with you, now that I'm seeing it, this bedspread is a little bit busy, maybe, but because I have neutral colors on the other things, it'll work out okay. And then I thought maybe I would use a separate object also to be a hat, a baseball hat, because I wanted to get something else kind of cloth in there. So I'm going to show you, kind of the process of how I would set up with the objects, kind of messing around with them until I get an interesting viewpoint. And I'm going to be drawing from like right here, so close to where the camera is. So I'm going to be looking at it from that angle the whole time. I'm setting it up to see what needs to be adjusted, what makes it interesting. And some of the time, I'll hold my hands out like this and kind of look like I'm framing it to see what it will look like. Okay, so let me just try to set up a few things. So I think I'm kind of interested in the buffalo being at the top, right there. I'm going to try to create diagonals the whole time I'm going. See how the book's going this way and that's going that way? It just offsets it, makes it interesting shapes. I want that to show pretty well. And I'm realizing that where am I going to put the hat? I kind of wanted to think about putting it up on this here. So I'm actually going to grab another thing that I have here to hold up the hat. Because I had thought I was going to put it on the horn, but now I'm realizing it doesn't work great on the horn. I'll add a little tripod, put the hat there. That makes it kind of cool, like almost like, oh, I just got off work, I hung my hat up next to my reading materials in Buffalo. Not that I would ever actually do that, but it keeps kind of like a little story going on here. And I'm not sure about this horn. Every way I'm trying to set it up isn't really working for me. So I'm going to try to put it up there like that. So you can't see it super well from this angle. I'm going to be sitting lower down. So when I look at it, I'm like, okay. I'm looking at what the negative space is around here and how it looks, and I'm realizing that it's not super interesting because everything's the same height. So I'm actually going to take out one of the books from the buffalo and set it up again that way. I'm going to take the book off because I wanted to use this book for putting the antler on. So I'm going to try to change it up again and see if I can get some of the heights to be more interesting. So I'm going to move it so you guys can see it a little bit better. There we go. I still think this I wish was longer. It's a little tripod. I need to figure out a way to get this higher up maybe. And then I'm just going to put that one there so the antler gets more interesting. What I'm realizing is everything's just feeling very haphazard. And that's partially because it's on the bed and it is a haphazard arrangement of objects. But the other part of it actually is because of how I'm setting it up, I'm making it haphazard by the way I'm arranging it. And if I start to kind of make it a little bit more interesting, this is the part of the class that's hard to do online, because if I was with you in person, we could look at it together and also arrange it together. And we have a bunch of drawing objects in the class. Objects for still lifes. These are called still lifes, right? And then it makes it kind of more easy because it's got a blank canvas type of environment too for the white pedestal. Okay, that's starting to get interesting. Again, I think the issue is that it's all the same height. So now I'm realizing that I have the buffalo higher. Forget it. I'm just going to put the hat down. And get rid of that. And then I'm going to actually just bring this up a little bit. Like that. Higher to make it diagonal. And I wish I had a way that I could zoom in on this for you. I'm going to try to pause this and then see if I can get closer so you can see more of what I'm actually looking at. So this is it right here, kind of still life setup that you're seeing. I got the camera a little free, so it's kind of moving around a little more than I would like. Hopefully it doesn't make you too dizzy. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's not the best ever still life I've ever seen, but I got interesting shapes. I thought that the complicated background was going to work okay because I kind of knew these were neutralish objects, but I'm realizing now I really should have used a white sheet the more I look at it. So take that as a learning lesson from me right now. You're going to want to use something pretty neutral, otherwise it gets really busy. Okay? So you see how I went through process, looked at it, and kind of made things interesting. One last thing I'm realizing right now too as I'm looking more and more is that this being straight at me as a drawing is not going to be very fun to draw or interesting to draw. So I'm going to prefer to put it kind of sideways so you can see more of the silhouette of it. Okay? And now I'm going to set up to draw it and kind of show you how I start out, and you'll be looking at my paper more than anything, but you kind of get an idea of this. I want to make this really clear right now. Okay, I'll say this 2 times. When you go to set up your still life, take a picture of what you see from where you're sitting at, right where you're sitting, your eye level, your eyes as you're looking at it, and you're going to submit that with your drawing so I can see what you were looking at, okay? So take a picture of what you see in your still life before you do anything else, even draw it. Take a picture of it. You can reset it up if you needed to, but I need you to submit that. Submit the picture so I can see what you were drawing so I can help you with your drawing skill. Okay? That's really important. Alright, I'm going to pause it and get set up for my drawing. Alright, I want to make it really clear also. You need to read the assignment directions. It says for you to work on 18 by 24 paper with pencil. Okay? I'm using a smaller sheet of paper, excuse that, and white paper. You can use newsprint, but you must use 18 by 24. You can use the white or the newsprint, but I recommend the newsprint at first. I have to work on a smaller piece of paper because otherwise you can't see what I'm drawing and the still life at the same time, and it's too big and awkward for the video. Okay, but you need to be using 18 by 24. Have a pencil. I said the 2H for sketching, and then the 2B to darken up the lines. Make sure you keep your sharpener close by. You really want to have a really sharp pencil, otherwise your lines are going to look all blunted and bad, and you won't be able to have accurate lines later on in the course either. You need to have like an accurate line, which takes a sharp pencil. Okay, I'm only going to use the darker pencil the whole time, otherwise you wouldn't be able to see what I'm drawing. But what I mean by having a lighter line and then darkening it up is if you had something like sketchy, like you're doing the hat, and you had this line and you had kind of a couple lines and you weren't sure which one you wanted until later you have a sketchy line, well, you can come back and kind of darken up some of your lines just the way you, once you know exactly where they're at. This is a good way to work with sketching. You don't have to do this way. If you're just going to do one, then You can use the darker pencil and just use it lightly and then darken it up. You don't have to use the two pencils, but I do recommend it, okay? So, you have a still life, and you're doing a contour drawing. Where do you start? Where shall I start drawing this, do you think? You're allowed to pick up your pencil now, and you're allowed to look at your paper, but you still want to mainly focus on looking out there. Where do I start? I can start anywhere, really, as long as I do it in a way that's logical, and I'm paying attention to how big things are in comparison to each other. We haven't gotten into proportional measuring yet, but we will soon, which means comparing sizes, but we still want to kind of make sure we're not getting like crazy with that. We have a general idea of the size of things compared to each other. So I'm going to start over here with the baseball hat, and this is hard to do because I don't have a drawing horse either, but I'm just going to slowly begin to draw it, okay? Can you see my page? Let me tilt it down a little bit. Now, I should be working at an angle so that I can be like this and look up occasionally, but you won't be able to see the drawing as well, so I'm going to have to kind of break my own rules slightly. You don't need to do that though, because you're not trying to film what you're doing for other people to look at. So you're just going to take and do a slow line drawing. And mostly I'm still focusing on my eye being focused on what I'm drawing. I'm not going quick. I'm going really slow. The videos I had you watch speeded up. I'm not speeding it up because I want you to see actually how really slow I'm going. I want you to know, like, this is not something you can just sit down and do in 5 minutes. You have to really spend the time, get into the right headspace, and slow down your hand. Okay? I'm just carefully tracing it with my eye as I go. I'm going up to the top of the object. I'm realizing already right now, because I was talking and I'm not thinking about the drawing because I'm trying to talk, that I have a huge problem going on here for you, which is what? Maybe you can pause and think about it with me for a moment. This is my hat right here. Where am I going to put the buffalo? There's no space, right? So I'm going to have to start over. If you do this type of thing, then you just got to edit it. You just, if it's early on and you do it, okay, start over. If not, then you're just going to have to keep on doing it as you go, like, and do your best, basically. Also want you to notice I got 5 objects in this. I'm going to still draw the books, but they're not as interesting as the other ones. That's fine. Not everything has to be equally interesting as an object. You kind of have to have some more blank objects to put things on, like books and things, but if you do notice, I still have 3 very interesting objects that I'm using. So I'm going to start over again here and do the hat fill this time. And I'm going a little faster than I normally would want you to go because I'm trying to make sure you kind of see what I'm doing. So I'm going to get that in, that line in there. What I mean by see what I'm doing is I want you to be able to have a chance to kind of see how I'm going to lay out other objects next to each other. So I'm going to pause for a minute and keep drawing and then pick it back up again once I'm further along for you to see the process, okay? So that's the bill of the hat. So I'm further along and I want to show you, I'm starting to get the hat, and I didn't get too bothered about at first getting every little detail on it, like the San Francisco. Yet I'll go back and do that. I wanted to get mostly the outline, and then I started getting the bison. I'm trying to draw a little quickly to get this going for you guys, so you don't have to sit here for forever and watch. So I'm probably going a little too fast, but I want to show you something real quick up on the still life. Now, if you see you have a pencil. If you want to use it to line things up from your viewpoint, get it lined up where you're like on the top of something, say like the top of the hat, and use it to see what's across from it. So see how across from my pencil is the foot of the bison at the top of the hat? I realized I made a mistake in my drawing, and I was going to show you guys that I can use this as a way of checking myself. What it is I'm using a pencil to almost like draw a line in the air with one eye closed to see where something would line up. So in this case, the top of the hat lines up with a little bit up the leg of the bison. So in my drawing, you can see the top of the hat I have lining up almost with the beard. So see how that means my bison's way too low down. So I should actually have it up about this high so I can fix it and bring it up quite a bit. So this is a case where I would actually take the time to fix it. Okay, so let's see if we can get this in view for you guys. So when I'm fixing it, I'm not going to immediately just start to erase. Actually, you think, okay, just erase it and start over. No, I'm not going to. I'm actually going to transpose some of my lines up higher and say, okay, I want this to be up there, so I need to like move everything up by about that much. So I'm going to just use what I've already been doing to kind of give myself an idea of where it should be and get like a basic shape switched before I start erasing everything, so I know how much higher up I need to be. So I can get that up here. That's the bottom of the foot. And I can start drawing that and getting some things worked out a little bit more. So that's that. And now I know I need to put all of this up higher. So I'm going to kind of copy my line. If you can see what I'm doing, hopefully. I'm copying my line higher up on the page so I can see what I need to adjust. So these lines aren't perfectly accurate yet. That's okay. I'm copying them up higher so I can get the idea of it. Now I can start to erase this because I kind of know where the bison needs to be now. And I drew my lines darker than I should have done. If I was you, would have been drawing them lighter, but I'm doing them dark so you can actually see what I'm drawing. But that's why I'm saying use the 2H pencil to do some of the sketching. So not that you're doing sketchy like, not sketchy in the sense of like hairiness, but sketchy in the sense, sketch in the sense of the first lines that are a little lighter so that you can get things in the right spot, right? So light lines more than sketchy. It's the better way to say it. So the 2H would be a lighter line, and then you can use that to actually, and I'm getting those off too. It's hard to talk and draw at the same time. So I'm going to come back in here and start to fix the bison. I'm really just tracing it with my eye the whole time. And what's happening is I'm seeing that my pencil's getting really dull, so I'm actually going to sharpen it up a little bit here because it's not really letting me do what I want. Just get a really tight, well-determined line. Okay, so I'm going to come back in here and start to fix up the head of that bison. I know it's going to go up to like there. So I got to get the horn. There we go. And I'm just kind of slowly chipping away at what I see and slowly adjusting everything. Just going to adjust and adjust and just kind of keep looking at the outline and the shapes inside. You're not doing only a silhouette. The silhouette of this hat, for example, would just be this shape but nothing on the inside of it. You're doing the inside masses and composition as well, not just the overall silhouette. So it's not a contour silhouette, it's a contour drawing. So you're just doing like basically what most people would think of when they think of a type of like a line drawing, right? So I'm going to keep on building that up. Again, it looks like I'm still having a problem with my height of things, so I got to keep adjusting this. I'm going to pause the video and then come back to it in a second when I add more to show you some more tricks and tips, okay? I want to tell you guys something else that's really important. I'm not afraid to put a line down in the wrong spot. A lot of times when you're first drawing and learning to draw, it's really easy to start feeling like, oh no, I'm doing this wrong, I'm putting it down wrong. I just kept drawing for a minute. I want to show you. My sketch of the buffalo is not looking perfectly great yet. But I'm okay with that because I'm just refining it and changing it, and see how I ended up with it, realizing it was way up here. I had to adjust it, and things aren't looking perfectly right. But in this type of contour drawing, now that I'm able to pick up my pencil, I can come back and adjust things and fix things and, you know, make it better each time. So I'm adjusting and I'm putting things in the right spot, and I'm erasing after I do that to kind of give myself a chance to really see what's there. You know, I'm not afraid to say, okay, I'm doing this wrong, to slow my eye down and to get back in and really investigate it. And I'm saying, oh, okay, things are not right in the right spot. Mostly still really, really, really looking at the object. And I'm not looking at my paper very much. And it's okay that it's not right all the time, right away. I'm not going to leave it that way. Okay, so here. That's prime example. I'm using, you know, this chance just to show you, hey, I don't have to have it perfect right away. I need to just give myself a chance to put something down on the page and adjust it as I go. Okay, so that's me building up the buffalo. I'm going to switch on off of that for a minute, not because I don't want to finish it, because I want to show you this close object in the front, the antler horn. So I have the hat, I have the buffalo that needs more work. And if I were you at this point, I would keep working on this and drawing it, but I just want to show you more of an idea of the antler horn, something to show you about a technique. Okay, I'm going to move the camera up here. Now, you see how this antler horn is the closest thing right here, right? And up here. I want to show you how you can use your pencil to kind of get angles, like the antler horn is at an angle like this. If you're straight on the camera, I'm trying to line up. Okay, so if you know it's that angle, it'll help you kind of realize how to put it on your paper a little bit. So here's my paper, my eye, and I know the antler horn is kind of like this angle. It'll help me to be able to kind of take that angle and just drop it down on my paper and kind of get something that looks sort of accurate at first as a starting point, maybe a little guideline to help me with my contour drawing, bring in this idea of the beginning forms of boxing things. This is kind of a little bit towards the next thing we're going to be doing, but I still want you guys to get the idea that I'm using the pencil like a protractor, sort of. I'm not poking it in or out through the picture plane, this imaginary field in front of me, but I'm keeping it parallel to my eye so I can kind of get an angle, and that's kind of the angle of that. So I'm just going to give myself a little reference point. I know it's like right there. It goes just to the right of that hat, and it goes above it quite a bit, but it goes up at an angle. So now I've got the starting of the antler horn just like that. I'm going to come in and slowly trace it with my eye and adjust it and make it a little bit more accurate every time I touch the drawing. I'm just going to try to make it more accurate every time. Just adjust things that are wrong, or closely trace like an ant, like that one video I really like says, imagining like an ant going along the surface. Look at this, I'm realizing I'm making a mistake. I'm not going to go down that way because the book is higher up, so I need to go even further down. Keep going down. Yeah. Trace it with my eye. There it is. slowly turning, just getting up into that form, going really, really slow. Okay, that's getting off the page, so that's showing you that sort of angle that I was trying to figure out there. And that's the horn, the top of the horn. So I'm going to keep going up to the edge of the horn up here and show you just how I'm going to go the other side. I'm not going to get too distracted by, see how up here on the horn there's all this color and texture. I'm not going to focus on this color and texture yet. I'm going to just focus on the form. And this is kind of like surface color. But this over here, this form over here will work really well because I actually can capture that. And I'm going to break a cardinal rule right now because you shouldn't ever do this. Take off your things out of spot. Well, actually, I'm not going to break it. I'm going to make the camera closer instead. I want to show you. Because if you don't want to move anything in your still life once you get started, because it'll mess it up. See how all this texture is right here? Not going to break the cardinal rule of moving it, but all that texture, that's actually part of the form, whereas this is just color. So I'm not going to get too distracted with that at first. I can do that later if I want to really add a lot of detail. But first I'll just get some of the forms down. Okay, so this is giving you a pretty good idea of how this is all going to work. Sorry if I'm talking a little monotone. I'm keeping on trying to draw and talk at the same time. It's really challenging because I usually do this in class as a demo, but you can see it, so some things I don't need to talk about, like what's in front of me, because you can just see it right there with me. So it makes it a little bit more challenging online to do some of this. So I'm going to try to keep my pencil down for as long as possible also. And something happened here. I got too straight in my line, so I'm going to kind of go, okay, I need to carve away, come back in here and slow my eye and hand down, carve away, let it come out and thicker. So I realized I got a little too distracted and got the antler horn was getting a little funny, too straight, so I came back in and adjusted it, then I erased afterwards. So this is me just building up the drawing a bit at a time. If I get something off, I adjust it before I erase and then come back in and maybe erase afterwards. And I'm drawing like really dark lines because I want you guys to be able to see. So I'm drawing like this hard to get these really dark lines. But when you do it, you'd be better off drawing with like lighter pencil at first. And you get like lines like that. See that? Oops. See that line right there? It's buff. So you guys will be better off to get really light lines at first. And then darken them up if you need to. So say I had this line here and it was light and my sketch was accurate. I could come back in and, you know, darken up the line carefully. Not putting like even constant pressure, but kind of like varying the line quality as I go. So later on it would be like this. But you don't want everything to be super dark, all the same amount of pressure and darkness. You actually kind of want to use that to a beautiful lyrical line quality. Like see how the I'm starting to get it right here with the stitching. It's kind of a light line because it actually breaks up and down because it's stitching. So you really want to use those type of things to your effect. It's not like the same as my criticism of like hairy lines like this, or because it's an easy way to just kind of crutch to get stuck in. This is more about the pressure of your pencil, not just being only like one heavy dead weight line, but to have some variance in like the quality of your line where it goes dark and light a little bit from how hard you're pushing, and have kind of some of the things that are more firm, staunch details a little heavier, and then other things that are, you know, barely showing up or lightly showing up, kind of having a lighter line quality, like the stitching. And the hat is a perfect example of some of that type of thing, because it's not like a heavy duty part of the shape. It's like actually happening from the thread going in and out of the hat, right? So that's kind of me just slowly pausing and kind of letting my pencil lift up a little to get like that implied line of the stitching. So you want to think about, what needs to be really strong, dark, firm lines, and what can be more lighter, lyrical. All of these are lyrical but lighter lines. So think about that as you go too. And don't get too focused at first on every little texture, but build up the form mostly more than anything. So I think this gives you a good idea. I've been doing this with you guys for 30 minutes, so longer because I paused it for various times and I'm still not finished, right? So, and I've done this quite a bit. So you're going to need to spend some time on these 4 drawings like you would in class. We'd usually in class have 6 hours of in-class time and also homework time. So 4 drawings is going to take you a little bit of time. You can't just get it done in 15 minutes and call it good. You have to have some craftsmanship. And you don't have to pick objects maybe quite as intensely varied as this. I pushed it to the nth degree to show you interesting things. Some of them can be more plain, like the books. But you don't want to have a boring still life because you have to sit there and look at it and draw it. So you want it to be interesting, okay? And the books help you with that kind of regular rectangular thing, offsets things that are not anthropomorphic, organic and irregular. So it gives you kind of a contrast and makes it more interesting and creative, okay? Last thing I want to say is I set up my paper this way, up and down portrait, right? Because why did I do that? Well, because there's higher than there are wider things. Everything's still kind of like in the middle. But really, I could have done it, and I probably should have. At the time, I thought, okay, it's higher than it is wider. But really, probably should have done my paper this way. Maybe even you can learn from me. Because actually, if I measured it, 1, 2, 3, it's wider than it is higher. So I actually should have done my paper sideways portrait so I can get more width and space. And then the thing that you guys are going to benefit from by using the bigger paper, I have to use smaller so you can see what I'm drawing and doing. That's why I used it like this, honestly, so it wasn't too wide for the camera. By having a bigger piece of paper, you can add like details a lot more easily because you're not sitting there trying to just do tiny little things with your hand all cramped up like If you have a big page, use the page, right? Use the whole page. Don't just do a tiny little drawing down here in the corner of a page, which means you're going to have to loosen up and draw from your elbow, not just your wrist like this. Draw from your elbow, I'm pointing to my shoulder, draw from your shoulder and really get loose and kind of move your arm to get into there and get bigger shapes, okay? Alright guys, if you have questions, post in the Ask and Answer question answer cafe. I want to help you guys as you go along and you can post pictures of in progress stuff if you're not sure if it's working well. Post some pictures and I'll give you feedback before you keep doing 4 still lifes and none of them are working well. If you do one and you're not happy with it, post and let me help you guys figure out what you can do to make it better. Okay? Take care out there. Hopefully you're staying safe and well and practicing social distancing. It's really hard to do because we've all been stuck in our houses for like 6 months. Take care.